Hey, Matt here. This is the last day of March 2025, and I'm going to squeeze in one more video for the month, even though I always do 8. This will be my 9th one. What the hell, right? This is going to be ZZ Top, and it's going to be an easy video to do because I'm only going to use this little box set, folks, which is pretty much all you need. It's the albums from 1970 to 1990, so this will be 20 years of ZZ Top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 albums. 10 albums in 20 years. They're little, cardboard replicas of the LPs. ZZ Top are, of course, the great Texan blues band. Can you call them Southern rock? I don't know. Let us begin. All right, 1970, ZZ Top's first album. It's okay. The guys are, well, it says Billy Gibbons, Dusty Hill, and what does that say? Something Beard, but it's not Frank Beard. Anyways, the sound is here, but the songs really aren't. You know, it's a decent album. Had the band just made this one record and then broke up, I don't think we would be remembering them all that fondly. All right, but they sound good, for a three-piece. Hendrix was aware of Billy Gibbons, although from this album or not, I don't know. Anyways, what I think is much better is Rio Grande Mud. All right, what this is, 72, I think. This is a solid record. I'm going to use the back of the box to read the songs. Francine and Just Got Paid are the two classics. They were on the compilation in 77. Cocoa Blue is good. Chevrolet is good. Apologies to Pearly. Barbecue. Whiskey and Mama. I think the whole thing is pretty good. It doesn't have that many famous songs on here, but it's twice the album that the first one is. All right? But some would say that they peaked early with 1973's Tres Hombres. Opens up into that, that's some Texas Mexican food, which is what I ate, when I was a kid. Now I'm in California, Southern California. And the Southern California way of making Mexican food is not the same as the way that they make it in Texas. We use refried beans here. They mostly use black beans there. And the nachos are different. I remember when I was a kid, the nachos would be like served on an individual chip. You'd have the chip, the cheese on top, and then like maybe something on top of that. Whereas nachos in SoCal or just the whole plate or bowl, and then you get the chips and you melt the cheese on top. It could be different than that now in Texas, but that's just what I remember. But I always like to look at that picture when I'm listening to ZZ Top. Get some beer or margarita. Anyways, Tres Hombres. This is a killer album. Waiting for the Bus and Jesus Just Left Chicago are my two favorite songs in a row that they segue in the ZZ Top catalog. Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers is great. Master of Sparks is about they used to tie this little metal contraption which would cover your body, and then they'd drag it from a pickup truck and it would drag across the ground on the pavement, leaving sparks. Hot Blue and Righteous, Move On Down the Road's pretty good. Precious in Grace, of course, the Immortal LaGrange, Chic and Have You Heard? Yeah, it doesn't really get... This was the album I would give to a ZZ Top newbie. If he would ever come to me and say, Matt, what ZZ Top album should I start with? I would say it's hard to go wrong with Tres Hombres. It doesn't really get much better than that. Fandango came out in 75. It's one of those, 70s half live, half studio albums. The studio stuff is pretty good. It's the best stuff on Fandango is almost on a par with, Tres Hombres. We get Thunderbird, Jailhouse Rock, the Elvis tune. There's a medley of Backdoor Love Affair, Mellow Down Easy, Long Distance Boogie, Nasty Dogs and Funky Kings. Then we get, excuse me, Blue Jean Blues, which was in the 77 compilation. Balinese, Mexican Blackbird, and then we got Heard on the X, which I used to hear on the radio all the time. That's about a Texas radio station, or was it a Mexican radio station? And then Tush. Tush is, well, almost as legendary as LaGrange. So the album really picks up toward the end. The live stuff, surprisingly, it's just okay. I like the studio stuff better, though. All right. Tejas, 1976. This is a fairly good one as opposed to a great one. Kind of like Fandango. But at this point, ZZ Top there was truly classic ZZ Top songs on all these albums. Maybe not the first one, but everyone certainly after that. Tejas, 76, I have talked to you guys before about this, was a weird year because it was our bicentennial year, which I remember, and a lot of really great bands and artists failed to deliver a classic that year. Tejas is one of them. I'd say this is a good album. The Stones did Black and Blue, the same. Led Zeppelin did Presence, the same. Steely Dan did Royal Scam. Yeah, I like all these albums, but they're not among the best. I don't think, anyway. Oh, there's more than that, because now I'm thinking about great albums in 76, which I just like, but to further my thesis, I should be able to come up with like one or two more that are just okay. But anyways, I just remember thinking that 76, certain people dropped the ball. All right. So anyways, Tejas. It's Only Love Is Great. Rested for Driving While Blind, I love. El Diablo. Enjoying Get It On. $10 Man. I'm just doing the ones that I remember. She's a Heartbreaker. And Asleep in the Desert. It's kind of a neat one too. But really It's Only Love. And I guess Arrested for Driving While Blind are the two standouts on the album. They usually started off their albums with two really good songs. So I do recommend Tejas, but don't make it one of the first purchases that you do if you're coming to the ZZ Top catalog blind. For those of us who've been listening to this since we were kids, I actually really like the album now. But I think much better, this came out after the compilation in 77, which, by the way, that compilation, whatever it was, Best of ZZ Top, was the first ZZ Top album I ever heard. Every song is classic. And that's when I went back and, decided to check out the catalog. It was one of those classic introductions to a band via a greatest hits album. This is Degüello, which Degüello was from 1979. I think this is one of their stronger efforts. This might be their second best album after Tres Hombres. I Thank You is the old Sam and Dave number. She Loves My Automobile. I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide. We used to love blasting that one on the radio. Fool for Your Stockings. Dust My Broom, the Elmore James tune. Cheap Sunglasses. That's another, essential top number. They were firing on all cylinders on this record. 1979, their last album of the 70s. Still their best decade, I think. Underrated is El Loco. This came out in 1981, a year I was living in Stockton, California, Northern California. This was another fairly solid effort. I remember it fondly. Not as good as Degüello, but and not as famous as Eliminator, but still a nice in-between record. It's got Tube Snake Boogie. They love those sexual motifs, didn't they? I'm Gonna Drive You Home. Lila, Don't Tease Me. It's So Hard. Pearl Necklace. They played that a lot on the radio. Groovy Little Hippie Pad. And then Party on the Patio. That was a single. I don't remember the last time I heard that on the radio, but they did play it then. I'm going to say this is the last of the classic sounding era for ZZ Top before the synths kind of took over. But, guys, I got no problem with Eliminator. To me, this is a classic 80s MTV type LP. These songs were played to death on the radio, on TV, on MTV. We watched the videos. It still rocks. It still sounds, discernibly like ZZ Top. It's not like they, but yeah, to have success at that level at that time, you had to make concessions to popular production values from the 80s, and that's what they did. But I don't. It isn't like I listen to this album, I say, oh, if only they recorded this the way that they did in the 70s, recorded the album in the 70s. No, I think it's just fine. Let's go over it. Give Me All Your Lovin', Got Me Under Pressure, Sharp Dressed Man. Those were everywhere in 83 to 84. Let's see, Legs, same thing. And that's probably it for the big hits. But the other, half of the album is real fine. So if like this is your favorite top album, I'm not gonna snicker at you. I think it's a fine record. It's by this point, albums like this or Bowie's Let's Dance or Springsteen's Born in the USA, I was happy for their success. Or Tina Turner's Private Dancer. None of those are bad records. Some of them are actually classic, like the Springsteen album. But it was good to see the younger generation. I was getting out of high school at this point in '83. I was in college when the other ones were happening the next year. But I was happy for their success. Even more down the '80s production road, but I still think that they're basically good songs, is Afterburner. All right? Afterburner is right. It's even more synth driven. Sleeping Bag, Stages, Woke Up With Wood is a funny song. Rough Boy, those were all played a lot on the radio. Velcro Fly, that's half the album. So half of this album was hits, half of Eliminator were hits. Yeah, Eliminator is a better record than this, but I don't mind this. This is the last one where it's like, they were still a huge band, they were still touring, they were still all over the radio and on TV. So, I was pulling for them. The last album in here is Recycler. It came out in 2000, I think, right? It doesn't have the dates. 2000. I mean 1990. Excuse me. It shows how old I'm getting. It's like I just know the year ends with a zero. Recycler is not as synth driven. It's got some more of the return to the ZZ Top of old, but I can't say it's a good album. The songs are better, I think, on Afterburner than they are here. I mean, I like Concrete and Steel is probably the best song on the album, and that's the first one. My Head's in Mississippi. And then it's got Double Back. Wasn't that one of those Back to the Future movies? This is the last top album I own, the last top album I've ever heard, and I only own it because it's in this box set. So, that's it. That's 10 albums. Wow, 12 minutes. How to wrap up ZZ Top. So, they just remind me of that era when blues rock was a big thing in the 70s. By the 80s, by the time that they had changed their sound, to accommodate all those synths, you really, in terms of popular blues rock, you really only had Stevie Ray Vaughan doing that. You had blues guys, like Robert Cray, but Stevie Ray Vaughan came along and he didn't make a whole lot of concessions to the 80s production values. He didn't have all those synthesizers, although there were some. Yeah, it's cool to look back at the era of ZZ. I mean, when they started making records, CCR were still around. And the Beatles released their last album in 1970. I mean, it's they totally come from a previous time, but they were fully relevant and contemporary in the Eliminator and Afterburner years as well. So I don't complain, that they don't make music like they used to. I've downloaded a few tracks since then that sound good, from iTunes, but they're mostly just Billy trying to write or have a sound that's in keeping with what he was doing in the 70s. When you start to repeat yourself or just, kind of never change your sound, then you see that's what the fans always want. They want you to remain the same, but you have to progress. So I understand how he gave in to the pressure to make his music contemporary in the mid 80s, because I mean I would have done the same thing after making all those albums before and having success with them, but not making a shit ton of money like he did in the 80s. Of course you're going to do that. You're looking out for your future interests and your kids, and So anyways, ZZ Top, one of the I think, one of the great American bands. But see, I champion that kind of stuff. I'm not going to only make videos on the Stooges and the Velvet Underground and, you know, people who are critically acclaimed. I like, you know, beer and Camaros and stuff like that. I remember that time. So I'm all for ZZ Top and Leonard Skinner and Aerosmith and Van Halen. I'm going to do me a Van Halen video too one day. So this is not one of my shorter videos. This is Matt signing off. See you next month.